Part 12. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 118. Squeak. The ranger didn't know how long he slept. He opened his eyes in confusion and glanced out the window. The sky outside was already slightly white. It looked like he was really exhausted, and he actually slept on this old bus all night. Out of the corner of his eye, he first glanced at Zhang Qiang in his arms. Seeing that the little guy was sleeping peacefully, his face couldn't help but show a warm color. He gently turned his head to the side to let him sleep more peacefully. When he took another look, hey, does this kid have a bad stomach? Most of his trouser legs were soaked with his saliva. Uncle, I want to eat chicken legs, Zhang Qiang said in a coquettish voice, making him speechless. He thought that in reality, how could this kid be a mukbang? He raised his head and looked at Xiao Xiao sitting next to him. Chengji. However, when he glanced over, the ranger was suddenly startled and saw that Xiao Chenzi was not in his seat. He quickly raised his neck and vaguely heard bursts of silly laughter from behind, and turned his head to look. I saw that Xiao Chenzi had woken up at some point and was still playing with a girl behind him. The two of them hid in the back of the car, giggling from time to time. The other survivors in the car not only did not feel bored by this, but listened to the children's laughter and felt somewhat comforted in their hearts. After all, being alive is already a fluke. Being able to find the survivor camp means that they can survive this doomsday. The children's laughter is more like a soothing shot that can soothe the panicked souls deep in their hearts. He carefully laid Zhang Qiang flat on the seat, stood up and moved his body. Although he slept very well, the old bus was really bumpy. After a night, all the bones in his body seemed to be stiff. In front of the car, two soldiers with guns were talking to each other. 5 o'clock in the morning is the time when people are most likely to feel sleepy, and often those who work the night shift will start to fall asleep at this point. The driver even took out a pack of betel nuts and a few mint leaves from his bag and chewed them together. Upon seeing this, the ranger walked to the front of the car, took out a pack of cigarettes from the prop book, opened it and distributed it to the driver and two soldiers. As soon as they saw the cigarette, the eyes of the three people immediately brightened up. Good stuff. After taking the cigarettes, the three of them didn't care whether the closed space of the bus would cause discomfort to people. They immediately lit the fire and took a long puff. The flames of the cigarette flickered, and the three of them took a few puffs, and they all became energetic. The ranger was sitting on a chair nearby, holding a cigarette in his hand. He originally wanted to smoke it, but thinking of Zhang Qiang who was sleeping behind him, he endured it and didn't smoke. He put the cigarette under the bridge of his nose and took a few deep breaths before asking them. He said, "Brothers, how long will it take for us to arrive? Otherwise, cigarettes are a good thing. A cigarette is often the best bridge between you and strangers." A soldier took a deep breath and said, "It's just 10 minutes away. Have you seen the bridge? After crossing the bridge, we will arrive at the camp." The ranger looked at the shadow of the bridge in the distance, and couldn't help showing an expectant look, and continued to ask, "When we get to the camp, He pointed at himself, "I have some strength, I can kill a few infected people." Maybe it was because of the ranger's cigarettes that the soldier had a good impression of the ranger. He looked at the ranger and said, "It's not bad. After entering the camp, everyone will be assigned work according to needs. If you want to be a soldier, that's the best. The pay is also quite high. Yes, we can receive a box of subsidies a week, which is considered a high salary in the camp. Of course, if you have special skills, you can also apply by yourself. It is said that the salary is very high." Special skills. The ranger was keenly aware that there was some information in these 4 words. Yes, special skills. It is said that some special infected people have a crystal in their brains. After eating it, they will have special skills and can join the special forces. Of course, if you don't have this ability, you have other talents, such as advanced welders and fitters. Things like that are also very popular. Two soldiers introduced him to the operations of the camp. In fact, it was similar to what he thought. After all, in the current situation, talents are the most scarce, and everyone must play their necessary value. Even a disabled person will get a job that can provide him with 3 meals a day. Moreover, the base adheres to the principle of never abandoning or giving up. If the situation is really special, the base will also provide certain basic subsidies. Although he lives in poverty, it will not starve to death. Not bad. Ranger nodded. At this moment, he suddenly remembered what Zhang Qiang had mentioned before. He raised his brows and asked about the child. At the same time, I didn't forget to refill the cigarettes in my hands for them. Ha ha ha. This cigarette is a good thing. We haven't smoked it for a long time. The driver refilled his cigarette and took over the conversation. If it is an immediate family member, you can take the child with you. The camp will provide an extra meal for the child, and the remaining 2 meals will be eaten at school. If not, then you will have to. If they are sent to school, they will be fully taken care of by the school, and they will receive 3 meals a day and plenty of instruction. As he spoke, he took a deep puff and glanced at the ranger through the rearview mirror. He remembered that this guy brought 2 children into the car, so he said, if you are not a direct blood relative and don't want to throw your children to school, then you just need to apply. The process is very simple, but the premise is that there is no meal subsidy. Half of your daily meal subsidy must be allocated to the children. Of course, the school is still responsible for the 2 meals at school. That's it? The ranger frowned in embarrassment. Seeing his troubled expression, the driver couldn't help but continue, the young man is a nice person. He can still take 2 children to escape at this time. Renai, but you can't tell that you are not their parents. If you are, I want to raise 2 children by myself. That's too much. Why not leave it to the school? Yes, the school basically guarantees 3 meals a day. Don't worry, the camp will take good care of the children. The treatment is better than that of our ordinary soldiers. There will never be any deductions. The soldier is also trying to persuade the ranger, assuring him that the school is good. Maybe some people don't understand that when resources are so tight, children without any fighting ability will be treated better than soldiers. But if you think about it in reverse, you can understand the brilliance of the camp. Once a family member is killed in action, the children will be sent to school. Everyone knows that the camp will provide the best convenience for their children, and who will have any worries? What's more, having a camp to support children is not only for the growth of the next generation, but also to bring hope to the entire camp to the greatest extent possible. Stimulating population fertility is the key. The ranger nodded, agreeing with the camp's philosophy. Let's ask the children for their opinions then. The ranger thought that since he had a lot of food and drink in his prop book, he was not afraid of starving them. When the time comes, he would be better off if he joined the special forces with his special abilities. How could he keep these 2 little guys fed and clothed? No worries. While he was talking, the car had already crossed the bridge, and in the distance he could see a bunker erected in the distance and a heavily guarded guard. Seeing this, Yuxia stood up and walked back, intending to call Zhang Qiang and Xiao Chenzi to prepare to get off the bus with him. However, just as he woke up Zhang Qiang and walked to the back row, the faint smell of blood in the air suddenly gave him a bad premonition. When he looked at the seats in the back row, his pupils tightened even more. I saw Xiao Chenzi sitting on a chair, holding a girl slightly larger than him in his arms, his sharp teeth piercing the girl's neck, greedily sucking the girl's blood. The girl's body twitched, and the pupils of her eyes gradually began to disappear, turning into gray eyeballs like those of the infected. I noticed the incredible gaze beside me. Xiao Chenzi slowly raised his head, and the corners of his mouth stained with blood showed a sly smile that should not appear at his age. Thank you for your hard work. Identity Mission 1, Escort completed. You are one of the 5 members who completed the identity mission and received a mysterious gift. Please check it yourself. The warning sound in his ears made the ranger confused. He never imagined that the person he risked his life to escort would actually. Before he could think about it, the mission prompt sounded again. Side Mission 2, Deadly Spread. Mission Objective, protect the source virus and initiate virus spread. Mission Description, the source virus host is about to fully awaken. When awakening, it will use itself as the source of infection and rapidly spread the infected person's virus within a radius of 5 kilometers. Please protect the source virus from awakening successfully. Hearing the prompt in his ear, the ranger was completely dumbfounded. He had always thought that the script space was wrong. He was clearly standing under the bad guy's house number, so why was he assigned a protection mission? It was only at this moment that he suddenly realized that he had been tricked. From beginning to end, his mission never gave him a chance to be a good person, which made him think of his name in the script world, Wu Ren. He murmured to himself, Wu Ren is indifferent and insensitive. It turns out that all this has been arranged long ago. Uncle, Chenzi, we are here, we are here. Zhang Qiang's shout woke him up, and he saw that the car had slowly stopped in front of the gate. Because everyone in the car was carefully inspected before getting into the car, the soldiers focused on observing the bottom of the car to see if there were any infected people hiding inside. Seeing that the car was about to drive into the camp, he looked at Xiao Chenzi and saw Xiao Chenzi put his index finger to his mouth, signaling him not to speak. At the same time, a ferocious smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and dots of scarlet light flashed on his forehead, like an activated time bomb. After the matter is completed, you will be my personal attendant, and I will give you half of the source virus. Xiao Chenzi said and patted the girl in his arms. He saw the girl sitting up stiffly, her gray eyes staring at Zhang Qiang, who was screaming excitedly. Xiao Chenzi's eyes turned cold and he whispered, "Kill him." After saying that, he closed his eyes, raised his head and took a deep breath. "Mother Queen, this is the greatest gift I can give you." The red light on his forehead flashed for a moment, and a dazzling light suddenly enveloped the car. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 119. On the other side, Su Tong was listening to the big bald man talking enthusiastically, when suddenly the whole nest started to tremble again. A deafening roar came from the door that resembled a chrysanthemum behind the statue. The sound spread along the tunnel to all corners of the lair. Only when the sound subsided did the bald man get up with excitement, his tentacles and limbs dancing excitedly. "The 9th source virus has awakened, great, the Queen Mother will start preparing to select a successor soon." Hearing the excited screams of the big bald head, he couldn't help but secretly wonder, why didn't he wake up so early or so late, but why did he wake up at this time? I always feel that there is always something wrong with the source virus that finally awakened at this time. But I know too little about the 9th source virus host, so it is meaningless to make guesses out of thin air. At this time, the bald man squinted his dark green eyes and looked at the unfinished statue in front of him, and patted his head. "Yes. Yes. Yes, just do it like this. I thought of it, so do it like this." I don't know if some inspiration suddenly occurred to him. The bald man immediately climbed onto the statue and began to modify his masterpiece in a drastic manner. With a crazy look on his face, he completely ignored everything around him and entered a state of selflessness. Seeing the bald head immersed in work, Su Tong glanced out of the corner of his eye and couldn't help but look at the huge gasoline barrels on the side. He raised his brows and didn't know what he was thinking of. He gradually narrowed his eyes and directed the big fat man to quietly swallow the filled barrels of gasoline. After quietly taking away a few barrels of gasoline, the big fat man ran away under Su Tong's command. Although this statue is a very good ambush point, If a big explosion suddenly occurs here when the Queen Mother is selecting a successor, the scene will definitely be very spectacular. But after much thought, he gave up the idea. Because it was unreliable, he couldn't produce the effect he expected with just the things he had in hand. Well, then just use it to blow up other things. He held his chin in his hand and began to think about what to blow up. At this time, an evolver hurriedly ran past him. Su Tong's heart moved and he immediately asked the fat man to follow him. He was not interested in those evolved people, he was interested in the man carried on the backs of these evolved people. Don't get me wrong, he has no particular preference for men. But it was Liang Hong who ran over just now, and this guy seemed to be injured. In the narrow gap, Liang Hong searched carefully, and seemed not surprised at all by the empty result. Look here. When they reached a fork in the road, Liang Hong directed the team of evolvers to search in an inconspicuous tunnel. But I believe Liang Hong knows in his heart that the nest is too big. There are countless nests in such an inconspicuous corner. If he really wanted to find them, he would not be able to find them even if he gave him 10.5 days. Sure enough, after searching for several hours, Liang Hong sat down on the ground and began to grab his hair irritably with both hands. But as soon as he raised his hand, the wound on his chest brought a burst of tearing pain, causing him to twitch uncontrollably. I saw that the muscles in his chest had been burned into a piece of blackened dead flesh, and the fire poison damage attached to it was like a red-hot coal, which continued to burn his body. Even drinking holy water and healing potions cannot get rid of such negative damage. The burning pain in his chest, coupled with several hours of anxiety, made Liang Hong's expression worse and worse. It turns out that the roar the Queen Mother made before was nothing more than conveying an important message to the entire nest, that is, the selection of the successor will begin soon. The first person to be anxious must be number 8. He was so anxious that he wanted to kill several Wang Jiamings immediately. But when he went there, he discovered that he was ruthless and he was not stupid either. They couldn't find the child, so they simply started to play missing. After all, the nest was so big. If they really hid, it wouldn't be that easy for number 8 to find them and kill them one by one. When the Queen Mother begins to choose a successor, and they appear together again, it will be too late for number 8 to launch an attack. Now number 8 was at his wit's end. In a rage, the first unlucky person was naturally the player under him, Liang Hong. How could Tana and his affairs be hidden from number 8? But Tana's explanation was that she needed Liang Hong's vigorous blood to nourish the fetus. In one sentence, number 8 obediently chose to acquiesce. Obviously, when it came to the multiple-choice question of children and cuckolds, he did not hesitate and chose to take it all. As for why Tana used biological mixture to control Liang Hong, there is no way to go into the matter. After all, Tana doesn't even have a bone residue left. Number 8 didn't care about this. He felt that it was Liang Hong's fault that led to Tana's death and the child being stolen. Ever since, Liang Hong had become like this, with that handsome face almost turned into a pig's head. The burning wound on his chest was tormenting him all the time. So sad. Liang Hong covered his forehead in despair, feeling that his whole body was like a puddle of mud and he had no strength at all. It's all that bitch's fault. Damn it, you bloody beast, you harmed me. Liang Hong cursed in a low voice. In fact, he couldn't tell what he was cursing. He just felt empty and uncomfortable in his heart. He even regretted it. Why didn't he choose to be a good person? Maybe the good guy's quest line will be simpler? The more I think about it, the more I regret it. I thought it was a confrontation between camps, but it ended up like this. While muttering to himself, Liang Hong's eyelids suddenly twitched, he suddenly opened his eyes and looked to the left. I saw a fat figure running past him. Liang Hong's expression changed, and he immediately got up to catch up. A slightly pungent smell wafted from the fat man's body in the air, which made his eyes light up even more. There is absolutely no mistake, This is the smell. It is the unique smell of biological mixture. It will be very pungent when you first smell it, but after you eat one, you will feel that this is simply the most fragrant thing in the world. So no matter how bland the taste is, Liang Hong can tell it right away. His speed is very fast, and he can be said to be as agile as a leopard. Compared to Big Fat, Han Han, and Fatty, who is as agile as a bag, no matter how you look at it, he has an absolute advantage. But he still couldn't catch up with Big Fat, and was left far behind by Big Fat. In ghost form, Big Fat had no attack ability. But the passive skill of Spirit Flash is too practical. It flashes one step at a time. It is a magical skill prepared for escaping and rushing. No matter how fast Liang Hong speeds up, he can only barely follow behind the Big Fat ass. Often when he turned a corner, the Big Fat man would disappear in front of him for a few seconds. Stop. Seeing the fat man running faster and faster, Liang Hong gritted his teeth and suddenly activated his prop card. After a layer of pale golden light ignited on his body, his speed increased instantly. But at this time, the Big Fat man stopped running and stood there obediently waiting. Seeing that he had taken out all his life-saving moves, this guy actually stood there, which made him feel uncomfortable. He thought it was so simple, shouldn't I have just shouted and it would be over? Only when the fat man regained his footing did Liang Hong catch up from behind, and without caring about anything, he punched the fat man in the face. The huge fist came down, and Liang Hong knew very well the power of his punch. Even if the opponent was made of steel and concrete, he would still be hit with a concussion. However, the expected touch did not return to his fist. Instead, he watched the fat figure disappear in front of him. When he reappeared, he saw that the fat man was already 10 meters away from him. Teleport. Liang Hong was startled, fearing that this guy would run away, and when he was about to continue taking action, the fat man in front of him mysteriously disappeared. Instead, there was an unfamiliar face. Player. Seeing Su Tong, Liang Hong slowed down his steps and immediately understood in his heart, "It's all your fault." No, to be precise, it was our adults who accidentally broke your scandal and killed that bitch. Mentioning that adult, Su Tong's face was full of piety, as if he was a loyal believer. Liang Hong frowned. This was the outcome he least wanted to see. If the baby was in the hands of other competitors, the probability of number 8 becoming the queen mother would be greatly reduced. Just when he was thinking about countermeasures, his pupils closed, and he saw a glass tube in Su Tong's hand, which contained the life-saving medicine biological mixture that he had been longing for. "Do you want it? I'll give you one of the 200 scripts." He shook the 8 pills remaining in the bottle and opened his hand towards Liang Hong. 200 script points? Why don't you grab it? I'm grabbing them right now. If you don't buy them, I won't sell them. The worst I can do is take them back to the exhibition and sell them. There are 8 of them here, which can increase your power by 40%. It won't be difficult to sell them for a sky-high price. He looked indifferent, which made Liang Hong hate it, but he had to admit that this thing could indeed be sold at this price. After all, the 8-piece mixture has an overall improvement of 40% and does not occupy the grid of the prop book. At first glance, who can withstand this temptation? But only I, the victim, understand how deceptive this thing is. Wasn't it true that I was also confused by the terms of this thing at the beginning, and that's why I became so decadent step by step? So much so that when he saw this thing now, his hands began to tremble uncontrollably. It's true that one pill increases your strength by 5%, but after you eat the 3rd pill, you'll develop resistance, and the 5th pill will have no effect. I don't care how much it increases my strength anymore. He just hoped to get one to relieve the indescribable pain that he was feeling all over his body now and that was haunting him all the time. It's too expensive. Make it cheaper. This thing is of little use to me. I can only pay 50. After hesitating, Liang Hong gave himself a more reasonable price. Surprisingly, Su Tong didn't bargain, but actually took out one and threw it to him. Liang Hong grabbed it and threw it into his mouth without even thinking. Suddenly, a particularly refreshing feeling of dizziness hit him, making him feel as if he was about to sublimate. At this time, even if the other party wanted to kill him, he didn't care at all. Seeing him leaning against the wall and lying on the ground, Su Tong's mouth twitched. He had seen so-called drug addicts, but Liang Hong's performance was even worse than those drug addicts. This made him feel lucky that he had no intention of eating this thing. After waiting for about 5 minutes, Liang Hong woke up from the strong hallucinogenic feeling just now, lying on the ground and squinting at him, without even the desire to give money. It's like I'll lie down on my back and you can do whatever you want. Even though it is only the third time that I have entered the script world, I have never seen such a bad player. So when he looked at the small medicine bottle in his hand, he sighed in his heart. Sure enough, pornography, gambling and drugs are not good things. Sorry, it's a little late. I'll take a break in the past 2 days to sort out the details of the story before continuing to add more updates. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 120. Gambling damages the heart, gambling damages the mind, and poisoning damages the life. Qian Lianghong is a bloody example. The 5% increase in strength is indeed very tempting, but who would have thought that even the player's physique blessed by various props would be tortured into this state? Su Tong was not in a hurry, and just sat on the ground casually, waiting for Lianghong to wake up again. Anyway, this place was very secret, and you had to go through several narrow corners to get in. And such hidden corners were everywhere in the entire lair. If there weren't any special means, trying to find it is like looking for a needle in a haystack. I lit the cigar and roasted it slowly. Now I not only like the taste of the cigar, but also enjoy the process of roasting it. He also took out 2 cans of Coca-Cola from the props book, threw one to Lianghong, and kept the other by his side. Taking a deep breath, the hot smoke wrapped around the tip of his tongue, and he swallowed most of it, just like tasting a piece of steak, savoring the different flavors inside. After the smoke cloud was exhaled, the lingering cloud smoke surrounded him, condensing and not dissipating, exuding a unique fragrance. Until this point, the first puff of the cigar has been completed. The whole process is tedious and slow, but it gives people a lingering aftertaste and a spiritual enjoyment. My father was a bad gambler. He often beat me every time he came back. Once, he pushed me against the wall and beat me black and blue. I can never forget. At this point, Su Tong didn't say any more, but there were tears in his reddish eyes. Lianghong raised his head, looked at him sideways, and frowned. Why are you telling me this? Su Tong raised the Coke in his hand, put it to his mouth and took a sip. However, he did not answer Lianghong, but continued, he died later. He was killed by me. I stabbed him many times with a knife. How many times do I know exactly, cannot remember. As he said that, he looked at Lianghong. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Maybe I think we are all just poor people. Poor thing. Lianghong was startled, thinking how could he have such a miserable life experience, but then he thought about it, how could I be better than him now? A relieved smile appeared on his face and he nodded, yes, poor bastards, we are all pathetic bastards. As he spoke, he raised the Coke in his hand towards Su Tong. The two of them toasted to each other through the air until they drank all the Coca-Cola in their hands in one go. They were so excited that they almost shed tears, and then they let out a long burp together with a satisfied look on their faces. It was like they were competing to see who could hit louder and longer, a very childish behavior, but the two of them looked at each other and smiled, their faces more relaxed. A man's happiness is sometimes as simple as that. Tell me, are you calling me here just for my 50 script points? After the incident just now, Liang Hong finally regained his energy, sat up straight, and signaled Su Tong to tell Su Tong directly his intention. Simple. 2 words, help me, 3 words, help me, 4 words, please help me. Su Tong raised his 4 fingers and shared his special plot mission information with Liang Hong. After Liang Hong looked at it carefully, he raised his head. No. Our tasks conflict. This answer is not surprising, even within Su Tong's expectation. But you know in your heart that my master killed Miss Tana and took away the child in her belly. Whether it was stealing or robbing, the method is not important, the result is the most important. She will become the new Queen Mother. And the culprit who caused this result is you. Oh, at least that's what number 8 thinks in his heart. Su Tong's words were so direct that Liang Hong was speechless and had no way to defend himself. Because this is really the case, otherwise how could the wound on his chest come from? But when these words came out of Su Tong's mouth, he still felt very unhappy. After all, he was also harmed by the guy in front of him. Now that he said this, if he hadn't thought about the pleasant contact between the two just now even if he doesn't take action, he has already thrown away his sleeves and left. Sensing the displeasure on Liang Hong's face, Su Tong immediately brought the topic back. You and I are both players. From a game perspective, you and I are the masters of the direction of this script. Just like the chariots, horses, and artillery on the chessboard, they are stronger than the pawns, or they run rampant, or they cross mountains and ridges, or they clash left and right. But if necessary, when abandoning the rook to save the commander, do we still need to ask the chess pieces for their opinions? Liang Hong's eyes lit up. Su Tong's words really made him feel refreshing. They have always used the perspective of participants to penetrate into the script world, and followed the script's planning and task guidance to explore the direction of the main line on their own. But I never thought about controlling the direction of the game by myself. Since you are a player, shouldn't this be a game you control? In fact, Su Tong's statement was mixed with many secret changes and wrong guidance. Of course, he would not tell Liang Hong. The prerequisite for doing this is that you must have a key trump card in your hand that can guide the direction. Not to mention telling him that this is a script world, not a computer game. Every time you try to deviate from the plot, you are taking risks on a tightrope. After all, you only have one life. Of course he would not say these depressing words. Just like insurance sellers won't tell you, the accident insurance you buy is a comprehensive insurance. It seems that the insured amount is as high as 600,000, which can only be collected if you burp on the spot. As for breaking a leg, breaking a bone, even if it is the whole body paralysis, the insured amount for these accidents is only a pitiful few thousand to tens of thousands of yuan. He actually had only one purpose in saying this, to make Liang Hong understand that he was a player and he was also a player. Players and players should be in the same camp. But I can't betray number 8 now. I am his vassal. If I betray him, he can kill me at any time. Liang Hong looked a little embarrassed and threw out his concerns. This is easy to handle. I can take you to ask my elders. It would be best if she has a way to help you solve this problem. If not, I have made plans to betray her at any time. In short, we are players, and our interests are maximizing is our attitude in playing the game. Su Tong narrowed his eyes and threw his own Wangjia. You. This sentence really shocked Liang Hong. He looked at Su Tong, and the fire in his heart was suddenly ignited. But Liang Hong is not a fool. Having experienced the script world 4 times, he does not believe that such a good thing will happen to him for no reason. But what benefits can you get from doing this? Liang Hong directly raised the most critical question that he was most concerned about. Su Tong had been preparing for this problem for a long time. He took a puff of cigar in a leisurely manner and stretched out 4 fingers at the same time, as if he wanted to break them one by one for Liang Hong. Of course there is. First, we are both players. In the same script camp, our power is far greater than that of each of us. Secondly, I haven't become a vassal yet, which means I still have a chance to join number 8. If I can find the baby, I'll be indispensable for the dragon's power. Third, my special plot mission did not explicitly say that I was required to help her rise to power. It just told me to find the artifact in the lair, so our missions do not conflict. Finally, and most importantly, don't forget, this is a 9-person difficulty version. Our current comfort is entirely because humans and infected people have not yet entered a state of war. Once the main mission begins, do you really think that with the 4 of us? Any chance of winning? The 4 benefits were broken apart and crushed one by Su Tong. He explained clearly, so Liang Hong had no doubts. Moreover, he is already in this state. If he doesn't give it a try, even if number 8 becomes the Queen Mother, it is unclear whether he will be reused. Once number 8 fails, his fate can be imagined. If you think about it carefully, you are the one with the least choice. After confirming the cooperation with Su Tong, Liang Hong hesitated to speak. You want this? Su Tong shook the glass tube in his hand, and Liang Hong nodded sheepishly. I can't give this to you. This thing is supposed to be hallucinogenic for 10 minutes, but it's over in 5 minutes. I can say with certainty that there is no interval of 12 hours between each time you take it. I give it to you. I'm afraid of drug addiction. He suffocated and died suddenly. Such kind and fierce words made Liang Hong feel an inexplicable sense of intimacy, as if they were talking like this between good brothers. I'll give you one every 12 hours. During this period, if you get addicted to the drug, just bear with it. After he finished speaking, he didn't forget to add, one piece is worth 50 script points, and you can't miss a single point. Liang Hong was stunned, and then he remembered that he hadn't given out the 50 script points just now, so he quickly gave Su Tong 200 script points in exchange, and the extra 150 script points were treated American Samoa advance payment. 150 script points is not much, but for Su Tong, what he lacks most right now is script points. With this script points, his script points barely returned to the passing line close to 400. After leading Liang Hong around for a long time, they finally arrived at Yan Niang's hiding place. Right here. When he saw the dilapidated room in front of him, even though Su Tong had praised Yan Niang to the heavens and the earth, she was as resourceful as Zudge, but when he saw the dilapidated house in front of him, his heart still couldn't help but thump. Su Tong also knew that the place chosen by Yan Niang was too crotchless. In addition to being run down, it was also dirty and messy. A person with high emotional intelligence said, "This place is unexpected. To put it mildly, this place is a garbage dump." Seeing this, Su Tong could only save Yan Niang's image, and coughed twice. Ahem, I have said before that although you are a prostitute, you are wise enough to be different from your husband, and you will always resort to extraordinary measures. Even if you turn the entire nest upside down, I wouldn't have thought that the adults would be hiding in this place. His voice was loud, as if he was deliberately showing off, but this was also meant for Yan Niang. The translation is, the guests are here, and we are ready to come out to receive them. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 121. Sure enough, after hearing Su Tong's voice, Yan Niang's figure appeared in the dim room. She glanced at Su Tong first, and then glanced at Liang Hong. With a glance, Liang Hong immediately felt a strong sense of oppression. This was not only the aura emanating from Yan Niang, but also the natural suppression of the semi-source body by the source virus. Liang Hong's eyes lit up, and his eyes immediately locked on the baby in Yan Niang's arms, and his heart suddenly gained a little more trust in what Su Tong said before. It seems that Tana was indeed killed by this adult. Su Tong hurriedly came forward, raised his humble and pious hands above his head, then crossed his hands flat on his chest, bowed deeply towards Yan Niang. With that expression, those who didn't know thought he was worshipping a god. Upon seeing this, Liang Hong hurriedly followed Su Tong's example and bowed. Seeing how humble and polite Su Tong was to her, Yan Niang almost laughed out loud, but she really enjoyed how this shameless guy was so pious to her. She nodded with an air of airs and ignored her. Her appearance was teasing the baby in her arms, with no intention of speaking. "Sir, this is my good brother. We are brothers and sisters. We have depended on each other since we were children and share the joys and sorrows." Su Tong came forward and started to talk with tears and snot in his eyes about how his poor brother was forcibly pushed down by number 8, forced to become AC, drugged and controlled, and finally became a tool of his men, and is still being used now. A story of ruthless abandonment on the streets. Liang Hong stood behind him, his face red to the roots of his ears. Even if he knew that Su Tong was deliberately helping him suffer, the problem was that it was too miserable. And, why does this set of procedures feel so familiar? He only knew that Su Tong was doing a terrible job for him, but he didn't know that Yan Niang had roughly understood what was going on. He glanced at Liang Hong and shook his head. "It cannot be lifted. A vassal is a vassal. When the host dies, the vassal will be buried with him." Hearing this, Liang Hong's heart suddenly dropped. "Grown-ups." Su Tong carefully raised his head and glanced at Yan Niang's slightly raised brows. He already understood what he understood and threw himself on Yan Niang's lap. "Sir, you can't just ignore death. That number 8 is going crazy now. Before long, other hosts will definitely join forces to kill him, and my brother cannot be buried with him in vain." Liang Hong raised his eyelids carefully, and when he saw Yan Niang's frown, his heart tightened. He was worried that Yan Niang would refuse, so he quickly knelt on the ground. "I beg you, sir, I will definitely repay you even if I work like a cow or a horse in the future. The grace of reinvention." His worry was completely unnecessary, but he didn't know that the reason why Yan Niang frowned was entirely because Su Tongjian's hand on her thigh was becoming more and more dishonest, and he actually pulled her leg hair. Yan Niang resisted the urge to kick this guy away, softened her tone, stretched out her hand to pull this guy up, and said to Liang Hong with a smile on her face, "The semi-source body cannot get rid of the state of being a vassal, but if I give you half more and help you become the new source virus." She didn't say the last part, but when she saw the smile on Yan Niang's face, it confirmed Liang Hong's suspicion. She couldn't suppress the ecstasy on her face, and kowtowed to Yan Niang to thank her. "Not that simple." Her voice changed. "You can ask me to help you, but you must show me enough sincerity." Yes, I can handle any of your requests." Liang Hong's eyes lit up. Once he became the source of the virus, his main task too would be completed ahead of schedule, and he could completely get rid of No 8's control. Such a good thing. Even if he is forced to go up mountains of swords and seas of fire, he would not hesitate to do so. Yan Niang was very satisfied with Liang Hong's attitude. Just when she was about to continue saying something, suddenly the entire nest began to tremble violently again. A low roar echoed in the lair. When the muttering ended, Su Tong found that both Yan Niang and Liang Hong didn't look good. "The Queen Mother is angry. She will choose a successor the day after tomorrow." Liang Hong explained to Su Tong the information contained in the roar. "Angry? A few hours ago, wasn't she quite happy?" Su Tong remembered that a few hours ago, in front of the statue, this thing made him happy. Why did he start to get angry after just a little effort? Liang Hong was a little embarrassed. The Queen Mother's voice contained many kinds of instructions, some for the infected, and some for the evolved alone. As a semi-source body, I can only hear a small part of the information. Lao Ju was killed. Yan Niang looked a little strange. Lao Ju had just awakened and was killed so quickly. It seemed that the Queen Mother had high hopes for Lao Ju, otherwise she would not be so angry. You must know that Chen Hai died so miserably. The Queen Mother didn't even say a word of roar. Didn't even fart. It turned out that at the moment when Lao Ju woke up successfully, a strong red light suddenly shattered the car window glass and quickly covered the air in the camp. At this time, the girl whose blood was sucked by Lao Ju, with limbs like a monkey, pounced on Zhang Qiang, who was stunned by the blood. The sharp claws streaked through the air quickly, but before she could touch Zhang Qiang's immature face, a figure was one step faster than her. In that flash of lightning, a big handful of barbs grabbed her throat from behind and wiped it hard with his palm. Puff! Blood sprayed on the glass of the bus, and the head rolled directly to the ground. Huh! Xiao Chenzi, who was sitting in the back row, was stunned for a moment. Seeing that the ranger covered in blood would betray him at this time, his face was stunned for a long time. The ranger glanced at Zhang Qiang, who was unconscious on the seat. His expression was extremely complicated, and he begged Xiao Chenzi in front of him, "You can kill the people here as you like, but not this child. At least you are also friends." Even if he knew that Zhang Qiang was just an insignificant role in the copy space. So what if he died? But he still couldn't bear it. At least he had gone through a lot of hardships along the way to bring him here and give him hope of living. Even if his hope is gone now, he still wants Zhang Qiang to survive. Just because I have worked hard along the way without any merit, let him go. The ranger bowed his head to Xiao Chenzi in an extremely humble manner, hoping that Xiao Chenzi would be accommodating. After all, this matter was not difficult for him at all. However, what I thought was a matter that could be discussed was instead reprimanded and cursed by Xiao Chenzi. Stupid! This place will soon become a desperate place. No one can leave alive. Besides, even if I let everyone go, he must die. Xiao Chenzi pointed at Zhang Qiang and said viciously, "You either kill him, or you two die together in the belly of the infected person." The ranger's face turned cold. He didn't expect that he would go out of his way to beg him and get such an answer. Suddenly an iron box appeared in his hand. This was the bomb he bought in the Vietnam Triangle before entering the world of this script. Holding the bomb, he threatened severely, "Don't come over, or we'll all die together." Xiao Chenzi shook his head, not taking the bomb to heart at all, and tapped his forehead with his fingers, as if trying to recall something from Xiao Chenzi's mind. "Hey, I remember watching Infernal Affairs, I want to be a good person." Late. The survivors on the surrounding seat slowly stood up, made sharp screams, and rushed towards the ranger. Da-da-da. There was fierce gunfire outside the car window. The rapidly spreading virus suddenly broke out in front of the camp. Some soldiers, after experiencing a brief dizziness, frantically pounced on their companions in the next second. The scene of the approaching doomsday was reenacted. The only difference this time was that another massacre was taking place inside the bus compartment. With a handful of barbs, he grabbed the head of the woman in front of him with a slap, and at the same time kicked the driver who had become an infected person unceremoniously. Ah! An infected person rushed up and bit the ranger's shoulder. As a result, the infected person's big teeth were blown off in the next second. Under the damaged clothes, the skin was covered with a layer of metal texture. How could an infected person who had just been infected with the virus be able to bite him? Time passed by, Zhang Qiang's body was already covered in blood, and he finally killed all the infected people in the carriage. However, he suddenly saw more infected people outside the car window, and more infected people were surrounding him. Seeing this, the ranger felt cold, and with a wave of his hand, he threw the shining dagger out of the window. At the same time, he reached out and grabbed the unconscious Zhang Qiang on the chair, wanting to take him out of here first. But before his hand could grab Zhang Qiang's body, a red light flashed before his eyes. Xiao Chenzi, who was sitting in the back row just now, suddenly appeared in front of him. His thin palm appeared on his chest in the next second. She patted him on the chest as if nothing unusual. The ranger's face instantly turned black and purple, and the blood in his body seemed to stop at this moment, and then flowed back into his heart. In an instant, the pupils of the ranger's eyes tightened, and he let out a heart-rending scream. Dense drops of blood seeped out from under his skin. "Ah! If you don't kill, I will kill for you." He looked back at Zhang Qiang, who was unconscious on the sofa, with a cold murderous intention on his face. After that, he pulled out the dagger from the soldier's corpse beside him, put it on the ranger's hand, grabbed his wrist with one hand, pulled his arm, and stabbed Zhang Qiang's throat with the knife. The blue veins on the ranger's face were bulging. He used all his strength to control his hand and pull it back. His other hand hit Xiao Chenzi's chest and head desperately. His fist was like hitting a stone and had no effect at all. This child, who is only 7 years old, has completely transformed into a monster. The gap between the two is so huge that even at the peak of the ranger state, it is difficult to compete. At this moment, he suddenly remembered something and looked out the car window at the shining dagger inserted in the tree trunk in the distance. Gritting his teeth, he jumped up and wrapped his legs around Xiao Chenzi's body. At the same time, he decisively activated the skill of the flashing dagger, jumping. Xiao Chenzi's eyes suddenly blurred, and the dagger stabbing Zhang Qiang's throat missed the target. Huh! He was a little surprised at first, but suddenly realized something. His pupils suddenly tightened and he looked back at the bomb in the ranger's abdomen. "Hey, I'm not Huatsai, I have a choice, I have a choice." The ranger's grinning face, stained with blood, looked extremely ferocious, and he suddenly pressed the detonation button with his finger. Boom! The fire suddenly shot into the air. It wasn't until the fire dissipated that Xiao Chenzi, with only half of his body left in the flames, crawled out with a distorted face. He looked back at the ranger's broken body and screamed angrily. Then his eyes glanced at the bus, his forehead flashed with a coquettish blood, and he controlled all the infected people around him to come closer. He wanted to cut Zhang Qiang into pieces. Boom! Suddenly, there was a dull roar in the air. The sound sounded like thunder at first, but it didn't feel like it. Xiao Chenzi turned his head subconsciously. In his eyes, he saw a shimmering silver arrow getting closer and closer to him. The arrow's body shone with bits of broken silver light, and turned into bits and pieces of silver flames in the air. Like the stars in the night sky. What a nice view. After the last thought flashed through Xiao Chenzi's mind, bang, the broken head was like a big watermelon falling from high altitude, and it was suddenly shattered. In the past 2 days, I have reached a critical point in writing, and the update speed has hit the brakes. I will continue to explode after writing it. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 122. Kaka Kaka. Black leather boots stepped on the broken glass. Although the fire had been put out long ago, the burnt smell could still be smelled in the air. The swimming pool in front of me should have been reflecting the stars in the night sky, but it was now emitting a pungent odor. Number 8 raised his head, feeling infinite regret in his heart. Something that was clearly within his reach had slipped away from his hands like this. The day after tomorrow will be the time for the Queen Mother to start selecting candidates, and the unknown fire in No 8's heart begins to flare up again. But there was no target around him for him to vent to. Several of his good brothers have already disappeared, and they have made it clear that I can't afford to hide, so I will hide first, and if you have the ability, you can come to me. The nest is so big, and there are countless unknown corners, ditches, and seams that people want to hide in. If you want to find it, it is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Unwise. Number 8 raised his eyebrows. Thinking of this, he felt even more uncomfortable, because this was another mistake he made. If he had ruthlessly killed all the hosts present, he should be able to sit back and relax now. But I was confused at the time, thinking that they would hand over the child obediently under my pressure. Thinking about it now, the more I think about it, the angrier I get. Grown-ups. A familiar voice came from behind, and he knew that the person behind him was Liang Hong without turning around. As a vassal, as long as they came within 100 meters of him, his whereabouts would naturally be noticed by him. I thought you wouldn't come back. Number 8 turned his back to Liang Hong and slowly raised his palm, only to see a faint black flame burning in his palm. Looking at the beating firelight, his sinister eyes flashed with piercing murderous intent. Liang Hong's eyelids twitched as he noticed the murderous intent and said quickly, "Sir, I found it. I found a trace of the child." Number 8 raised his brows, first surprised and then happy in his heart, but soon he became suspicious again. "You found a child? Where is it? Why don't you bring it back?" The sharp look in his eyes was like a dagger about to pierce his heart. Su Tong's answer that he had given him long ago flashed in his mind, and he quickly explained, "I had already given up, but suddenly I heard the baby's cry. Only then did I realize that they were actually hiding in an unfinished building under the lair. I didn't dare to alert them, so I rushed back to report them to you." Them. The first thing Number 8 thought of was this guy Wang Jiaming. Yes, a woman and a man. I saw them holding a baby with my own eyes, especially the woman. She seemed to be the host of the source virus as well. Liang Hong lowered his head and described everything he saw to Number 8 in detail. Including the location, as well as the woman's appearance, the man's appearance, all told in detail. These massive details gradually dispelled most of the suspicion on No 8's face. "Inform the blood demon and ask him to come back as soon as possible." As he spoke, Number 8 walked up to Liang Hong and looked at him trembling on the ground. His face warmed up and he said, "You did a good job this time. After this incident is over, I will personally help you get rid of the remaining biological toxins in your body." Liang Hong was stunned for a moment, and immediately realized something. There was unbearable ecstasy on his face, and he hurriedly kowtowed to Number 8. But in his heart, he completely hated Number 8 to the core. It seemed that Number 8 had long known about the fact that he was using biological mixture, and he was even more aware of the side effects of this thing. Realizing that he had been tricked by Number 8 from beginning to end, Liang Hong's hatred grew stronger and he followed behind with his head lowered without saying a word. "Tell me, what will happen if I swallow this thing?" Su Tong was lying on the sofa, holding the brain crystal from Tana in his hand. Different from other brain crystals, this brain crystal was actually dark green and had a special fragrance. Taking a deep breath, it even makes people feel a little bit heady. Yan Niang sat with the baby in her arms and asked without answering his question, "You should know that we cannot be No 8's opponents. His evolutionary path is purely for fighting. After all, she doesn't agree with Su Tong's plan, which is completely risky. As she said before, she is the weakest of all source viruses, otherwise she would not hide in this place, not wanting other source virus hosts to notice her at all. Now Su Tong actually wants to kill Number 8, which in Yan Niang's eyes is simply risking his life. But even so, she still agreed to Su Tong's plan, but in this plan, she was only responsible for the first half. Once her part was completed, she would leave immediately. She was able to do this because Su Tong agreed to tell her where the baby was. In exchange, she had to accompany her through the first half of the show and give him 2 copies of blood containing the source virus. Hearing Yan Niang's inquiry, Su Tong sat up straight on the sofa and stared at Yan Niang. "You should think more about your previous promise." As he spoke, he swallowed the brain crystal in his hand like a jelly bean. "Right here." Liang Hong pointed to the abandoned houses ahead and said firmly to Number 8. "Here." Number 8 glanced at the abandoned building in front of him, and he couldn't help but be a little surprised. This was a relatively remote corner of WL City. It was more suitable to be called a village in the city than an urban area. The only few high-rise buildings are also in an unfinished state. Looking around, the dilapidated doors and walls of low houses all over the street are reminiscent of those abandoned villages in TV series. It's really hard to be noticed in this place. I come. The blood demon stepped forward and opened his cloak. He saw densely packed bats rushing out from under the cloak and rushing into the abandoned building in front of him. With the help of the information transmitted by the bat, his eyes lit up and he pointed to the unfinished building inside. I found it right in front. There is indeed only a man and a woman, and they are holding a baby. Hearing that, the long-lost smile finally appeared on No-8's pale face. He strode forward with striding steps. The murderous aura permeating his body became stronger and stronger. The bats released by the blood demon were also affected, and they flapped their wings desperately to escape. His pride prevented him from quietly walking in like a thief and carrying out a sneak attack. In this way, he wanted to tell the thieves that their doom was coming. He walked very slowly, and with every step he took, a thick layer of dust rolled up on the ground, as if he was a giant beast waking up. The paradox is that his speed is getting faster and faster, and he can reach a distance of 100 meters in the blink of an eye, as if he is as simple as casually walking across a smelly ditch. Boom! Before he could take action, there was an explosion in the building, and as countless broken stones fell, two black figures jumped out one after the other. The former rushed towards number 8, while the latter ran madly towards the back. The broken stone hit number 8, but before the stone could touch No-8's body, it was blown away by an invisible force. He raised his hand with black gloves and grabbed it forward. A sharp and slender nail was firmly grasped in No-8's hand. "Oh, it turns out to be you." No-1. When he saw Yan Niang's face clearly in front of him, number 8 said in a slightly surprised tone, "No wonder I haven't seen you all this time. It turns out you are hiding here." As he spoke, number 8 looked behind Yan Niang out of the corner of his eye. A fat figure was taking clumsy steps, but it kept flickering in the air. If you look closely, you can easily see that this fat man is holding a child in his arms. It's him. When he saw the fat, honest, and stupid body, No-8's mind flashed, and he remembered that he had seen this fat man at the banquet. With a cold look in his eyes, he became more convinced of Liang Hong's words. Tana was killed by number 1. Go after him, don't bite too hard, don't hurt the child. Yes. When Blood Demon and Liang Hong heard this, they naturally wanted what they wanted and immediately chased the fat man. Perhaps they were competing, or maybe the relationship between the two was not good to begin with. Seeing that Liang Hong had regained the attention of number 8, the blood demon was naturally a little unhappy. At this moment, he took the lead. With his cloak spread out, his figure actually turned into a. The black light broke through the air and quickly left Liang Hong behind. Blood Demon is not only fast, but also one of the few players who integrates item cards into a complete set. His combat power is by no means comparable to that of rookies such as Ranger and Liang Hong. Big Fatty has the passive blessing of Spirit Flash, but his speed is still much slower than that of Blood Demon. Fat man, hand over the child. The figure of the Blood Demon emerged from the dark light, stretched out his hand and grabbed the big fat man on the back of his head. The sharp black nails reflected a blade-like light, and they were clasped towards the palm, resembling the shape of tiger claws. It seems simple and plain, but it is blessed by the passive combination of two prop cards, the skill tier and 5 elements fist. If he really grabs it, he can break even a steel bar. However, the big fat man didn't even dodge when he was about to win a blow. He let the blood demon's hand grab him, and then his figure flickered and disappeared in front of him. The blow missed, and the blood demon was stunned for a moment, but with his rich experience, he soon realized that the fat man seemed to have the ability to resist attacks. But this doesn't trouble him. Physical damage immunity sounds like it's very powerful. But it's actually not surprising at all, because theoretically, he can also be temporarily immune to physical damage. This ability may have miraculous effects in some places, and may even be a bit invincible. But when you meet someone with a little special damage ability, it can make you cry. He chuckled weirdly at the corner of his mouth and chased after me again. Do you know why those melee masters never bother with this stupid ability? Because this kind of ability will lead to death when it encounters spell damage. As he spoke, he quickly activated his prop skills, Blood Explosion. He opened his palm, and a bright blood-red light quickly shot out. Pang Pang didn't even have time to dodge this time, and was directly penetrated by the blood light from his chest. Immediately afterwards, centered on the penetrated position, a layer of deep red cracks quickly spread throughout the body. Seeing this, the blood demon quickly reached out to grab the baby in his arms. However, Pang Pang's body, which was about to loosen up, suddenly changed its appearance at this moment. The body that originally looked fat and chubby quickly lost a lot of weight, and the body became solid and strong, and the hole in the chest disappeared. The slender tentacles wrapped around the blood demon's wrist. The sudden change caught the blood demon off guard, and his other hand grabbed Fatty's heart again. Just this scratch, the iron heart chest, almost caused his nails to fly apart. Fatty transformed from the ghost form into the paper armor form, his skin showed a layer of bluish white, and his honest face seemed to be smeared with 2 huge pieces of blush. He raised his hand and punched the blood demon in the face. There are no more updates today, only 2. This paragraph is not easy to write, and I am getting ready to climax. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 123. Under the dull impact, the Gorfine's face also deformed. The big fat man in the paper armor state was like an alien tank, with tentacles wrapping around one after another. Seeing that the situation was not good, the blood demon immediately activated the prop skill, and the figure turned into a black light again, from get out of the tentacles. Then he quickly distanced himself from the fat man, feeling alarmed in his heart. It's his fault, otherwise other players would be in trouble this time. Don't think that it's difficult for players to die. There are not many players who have capsized in the ditch and fell into the hands of rookies. Didn't the prototype of 007 also die at the hands of a soldier? Seeing that the blood demon refused to approach easily, the big fat man immediately turned around and ran away. Although the speed was not as fast as the ghost state, the problem was that this guy didn't follow the normal route at all. It was like a bulldozer, heading straight in one direction. Run forward. The old courtyard walls of those abandoned houses were smashed all the way through. The blood demon frowned for a moment when he saw this. It was not that he had no other means, but the physical strength of the fat man in front of him was far higher than he thought, and his flexible tentacles would be very troublesome once he was entangled. The power of his means it's not easy to control. Once he hurts the baby in his arms, things will be in trouble. Hoo hoo. Breathing loudly, like an old bull that had just climbed off a cow, the blood demon looked at Liang Hong with disgust. This guy's drug addiction seemed to have started again, and he was panting like this just after running all the way here. Idiot. I have warned you a long time ago that any special props are very dangerous. Do you really think that those powers are given to you out of thin air? In fact, he had already reminded Liang Hong in a subtle way when he was consuming the biological mixture. As for any item that can increase one's own physical strength and does not occupy the item's level, 9 out of 10 will have great hidden dangers, and the remaining one will be a complete pitfall. According to the principle of equal exchange, there is nothing that can be obtained without paying a price. Relatively speaking, although prop cards cost script points, that is already the smallest and safest price. Can you do it? If not, Just go away and stay away. The blood demon will never give a good look to such pig teammates who don't listen to advice. You, hoo. Liang Hong pointed at the blood demon, but was speechless. He took a few deep breaths before saying, I'm not good at running so fast. Can't you entangle him? Give me some time. As he spoke, he held his lower abdomen and retched a few times. It looked like he wanted to vomit out his stomach. Then he did not forget to complain, see for yourself, where did all this go? This damn place. There isn't even a shared bicycle, is it easy for me to catch up? The blood demon was surprised to find that he just kept chasing after them. When he came back to his senses, he noticed that they had already chased them a long way away. No, we can't let this guy run any further. Go and entangle him and buy me time. The blood demon noticed that the distance between them and number 8 was too far now. If he were to continue running forward, he didn't know how many changes would occur. Okay, let me take a breath. Not sure whether it was intentional or he was really panting, Liang Hong held one hand on the wall and panted heavily. Seeing that this piece of mud couldn't hold up the wall, the blood demon wanted to kill him right now. When he turned around and took a look, in the time the two people were talking, the big fat man had run away again. It's bad luck for me. Seeing that the big fat man would have to run a little further and wait for Liang Hong to rush over, he didn't know how long he would have to gasp for breath. The blood demon threw a bottle from the prop book to him with a painful look on his face. Drink. Liang Hong picked it up and looked at it, his eyes sparkling. Are you willing to take out this thing? It seems that you have worked hard to become the source virus. The glass bottle that the blood demon gave him was filled with red liquid. The liquid rotated inside the glass bottle, revealing a rose-red color. Crimson Su, anonymous maker. A mysterious drink brewed from the blood of a girl using the black magic of the vampire clan. Edible effect, obtain deep red halo blessing. Crimson aura, lasts 30 minutes. Halo holders can increase their movement speed by 30%, their own strength by 15%, and gain the vampire self-healing effect. Note, when drinking, don't be stuffy, but learn to taste the fragrance of the girl in the wine. You must know that even the potions sold at the exhibition are far from the top quality of the potion in front of you. Just based on the word self-healing of the vampires, it is not expensive to sell it for 100 script points. Not to mention the movement speed and strength bonuses. It took the blood demon a long time to research this potion. For this reason, he had to lurk in some surrounding small countries and go out day and night to hunt down girls in villages and towns. If it weren't for this mission, the blood demon would never give this thing to a second person for use. Liang Hong's good fortune can only be said to be due to his mission. He very much needs to possess the source virus. Only by becoming the source virus can his dark physique be further improved. So for the mission, he could still afford the loss of this bottle of potion. Ha, don't worry, I won't let you down. Liang Hong opened his mouth and swallowed the potion completely. Although the vulgar actions ruined the beautiful taste of this bottle of wine, it finally made the blood demon's face improve a bit. After drinking this bottle of potion, a bloody halo suddenly appeared on Liang Hong's body. The whole person's condition has also been greatly improved. Taking a deep breath, the air poured into the lungs from the nose and mouth, and then spit it out heavily, as if all the coldness in the body was vomited out in one go, and the whole body felt a kind of pain from the inside to the outside. Comfortable. Liang Hong had not experienced this comfortable feeling for a long time. Looking at his palm, Liang Hong's heart was trembling. Wasn't he always like this before taking that damn pill? Thinking of this, his inner hatred for number 8 added another layer. Don't be stunned, come on. Seeing that he wasn't moving, the blood demon couldn't help but urge him. But as soon as he finished speaking, Liang Hong glanced at him coldly. What is it called? Is it difficult to say, please? The blood demon was stunned for a moment. This arrogant gesture reminded him of the time when the two of them had just entered the script space, when the prop card had not yet been unlocked. But Liang Hong dared to grab a kitchen knife and cut off the heads of several infected people. That unruly confidence seemed to return to Liang Hong at this moment. Seeing this, instead of being angry, he suppressed the disdain on his face and said to Liang Hong seriously, "I'm sorry, I'm anxious, just do it. After the matter is over, the blood demon, owe you a favor." What is reality? This is. Even if he knows that you only have this short 30 minutes of being a strong person, the blood demon will still give you these 30 minutes of respect. Liang Hong nodded, and suddenly stepped out with a strong step. Suddenly, a strong wind blew up in the air, rolling up flying sand and rocks like a leopard running at full speed. In an instant, he caught up with the big fat guy. "It's my turn." A light flashed in his eyes. He raised his hand and punched in the air. Although he was 5 or 6 meters away, the big fat man seemed to have been hit by some transparent object. He flew up in the air and hit the wall next to him. Fortunately, the big fat one was hard enough. Facing the oncoming Liang Hong, countless slender tentacles twisted into a huge fist in an instant and hit Liang Hong. Boom! The pure force of the collision caused the stones and debris between the two to be instantly swept up by the powerful air current. "Watch out, kids." When the blood demon saw this, he quickly reminded him that he was afraid that Liang Hong would be too excited, and if the child was shocked to death, they would just wait to be skinned and cramped by number 8. Liang Hong was startled and quickly stopped his strength. Instead of confronting this guy head-on, he chose to surround this guy and continuously attack and harass him to buy time for the blood demon. Very good. Seeing Liang Hong's performance, the blood demon became calm and took out a small cage from the prop book. There is a very small bat in the cage, with huge eyes that are still as translucent as sapphires in the dark. Its shiny fur makes it look like a cute little pet. But looking at this little guy, the blood demon felt as if he was facing a formidable enemy. He carefully bit the tip of his finger, took out a cotton rope, and wrapped it tightly around the base of his finger. It wasn't until the blood stopped flowing and the whole finger turned black and purple that he put his hand to the little guy's mouth and let it lick it. After just a few licks with his slender pink tongue, the finger of the blood demon shriveled up. Fortunately, he used a hemp rope to block the blood flow. Otherwise, if he took these few mouthfuls, most of the blood in his body would be sucked up by this little guy. "Come on, do me a favor and attack him, but don't hurt the child," the blood demon said and opened the cage. After the little guy climbed out slowly, he glared at the blood demon displeasedly, as if to say that the blood you gave him was too little. "I promise, I'll let you drink to your fill next time." The blood demon hurriedly patted his chest and promised that next time he would definitely, he would throw him into the party after he returned this time. After receiving the blood demon's assurance, the little guy reluctantly flew out of the cage, swinging his wings slowly, and then spun around in mid-air. The originally dark space suddenly became even darker. "What's this?" Liang Hong looked up and looked at the countless densely packed little bats above his head with horror on his face. These bats flew down overwhelmingly and formed a torrent of darkness. After Liang Hong hurriedly avoided it, he saw that these bats swallowed up the big fat man in an instant. "Hey, you won't hurt the child if you do this?" Seeing the blood demon approaching, Liang Hong asked nervously. "No. This is a swarm of blood demon bats. After locking the target, they will never attack anything other than the target. Their teeth contain a kind of neurotoxin. It only takes one bite to immobilize even an elephant. Let's just wait until this guy is sucked dry and bring the baby over. It's such a good thing, why didn't you take it out earlier?" Liang Hong couldn't help but become confused. Unexpectedly, the corner of the blood demon's mouth twitched, and he raised his finger and said, "You have to feed it well first. In order to raise this thing, I captured many women every day in several small countries in Thailand and Southeast Asia to feed it. Eat, otherwise the price will not be this finger, but half a life. Blood Demon said it very lightly, but only he knew that this thing would start to lose its temper at every turn. You are lucky if you don't have a problem today. If it does get angry, you must find a way to coax it first, and then it will take action. Once, in order to coax this little guy, the Blood Demon coaxed him for almost an hour. In the end, he finally coaxed his ancestor by giving a blood sacrifice to his teammates. What? I won't coax, I won't use it, okay. Well, it's okay. That's how the previous owner was. He has a temper, which is normal. So by the time he rushed over, the guy had been sucked until only a piece of skin was left. The Blood Demon wanted Liang Hong to delay because he was worried that if the little guy was in a bad mood, not only would he not be able to help immediately, but he would also have to coax the ancestor into good health first. Wow! Not long after, a tentacle wrapped with a baby slipped out of the bat. Seeing the baby in the swaddling clothes, Gorfine's eyes suddenly shone, as if he was afraid that Liang Hong would steal the credit. He immediately rushed forward and hugged the baby in arms. A closer look revealed that the baby's skin was slightly green and his eyes were slightly closed. He looked about the same age as Badian's child. There were several bubbles of different sizes on his face. Seeing this, the Blood Demon felt relieved and also didn't think much about it. After all, it is Tana's child. Although it is a bit strange, it is an acceptable result. Hey, why isn't this child breathing? Liang Hong from the side came over to take a closer look and couldn't help but be surprised. No way, the Blood Demon tensed up and quickly put his hand under the bridge of the baby's nose. As soon as he put his hand to the baby's mouth, the baby in front of him suddenly opened his light green eyes, opened his mouth and bit the Blood Demon's cheek hard. On hand. There will be no updates tonight. Let's go to bed early. We will start at the third update tomorrow. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 124. Ah! The Blood Demon screamed, and subconsciously wanted to throw the child to the ground, but before he could raise his hand, he was held down by reason. He did not dare to throw it, because this was the child that number 8 had chosen. It would be easy to throw him to death, but how to explain to number 8? In the midst of the struggle, the Blood Demon suddenly found that the blood vessels on his arms began to turn black rapidly, and it was visible to the naked eye that something was flowing out of his blood vessels. Let go! Liang Hong monster screamed and rushed forward, trying to take the baby away from the Blood Demon's hands. However, this little guy's mouth was tightly biting on his wrist, and he couldn't pull it off no matter how hard he pulled it. Seeing that he could no longer save his arm, and when he was afraid that his life would be lost if he bit it any more, the Blood Demon gritted his teeth and simply wanted to break off his arm. Unexpectedly, just as he was about to take action, a huge pain suddenly hit his back. A dagger appeared in Liang Hong's hand, aimed at the Blood Demon's back and stabbed it in hard. In fact, the dagger is not long, and is even a little shorter than ordinary daggers, not even 15 centimeters long. Moreover, the blade appears to be very thick. The strangest thing is that the handle of the dagger is thick and large. This dagger does not look like a qualified weapon. But the problem lies in the hilt of the dagger. The moment the blade pierced the Blood Demon's back, Liang Hong pressed his finger on the inconspicuous air valve switch on the dagger. Immediately, there was a sound of puff, and the Blood Demon's chest suddenly bulged, and then his entire chest exploded. This wasp dagger was a contraband that Liang Hong spent a lot of money to find in the customs warehouse through his real-life family connections. Even though the dagger is small, it is the most lethal dagger in modern cold weapons. Minced meat mixed with blood splashed out from the chest. Under the fatal blow, the Blood Demon couldn't even scream, but soon his body quickly turned into a ball of blood mist and rushed into the distance. Blood transformation technique. This is the life-saving skill that he relies on for a living. The condition for activation is that it will automatically activate after he suffers a fatal blow. After activation, it turns into a ball of blood mist, immune to all physical damage, and can quickly escape. After being released, all injuries to the body will heal themselves. It can be said that this ability is equivalent to adding another life to the blood demon. Of course, the cost is also quite heavy. It has 75% of the script points, and there will be a strong period of weakness, and the cooling time is as long as half a month. Blood mist surged into the air, and he quickly wanted to leave, but at this moment the big fat body suddenly disappeared, replaced by Su Tong, who had been ambushing him early. Demon power. Light blue magic flames suddenly poured out from his palms. Just as the blood demon said before, the price of invincibility is heavy. The blood demon never expected that another person would be hiding here. Under the flash of fire in front of his eyes, most of the blood mist was burned away by the magic flame in an instant. The blood escape technique was also forced to stop before he could activate it, and the figure condensed into a human form again. The whole person felt as if a layer of skin had been peeled off alive, wailing in pain. Immediately, a dazzling electric light flashed across his chest, causing him to be hit hard again, and his body fell straight to the ground. Liang Hong seized the opportunity and rushed forward quickly. The short and thick dagger was like an armor-piercing horn, and he pierced the blood demon's head. "Go to hell." As he spoke, he gently pressed the air valve button on the dagger with his finger. Puff. It may be because it has been released once, and the air pressure in the cylinder is no longer as strong as it was when the first blow was made, but even so, the blood demon's head deformed in an instant, making a clicking sound like a smashed walnut. Clicking sound. The head was completely swollen, and the eyes were protruding from the sockets. After blood mixed with brain fluid spurted out from the nostrils, the body fell heavily to the ground with a pop. Maybe the blood demon never thought until his death that he would be killed by Liang Hong. You know, under normal circumstances, even if they go together, they may not be able to kill the blood demon. They may even be killed by the blood demon at the extreme limit, taking away the life of one of them and leaving calmly. But in Su Tong's eyes, his death was a predestined outcome. He was calculated mentally and unintentionally, but his death was not unjust at all. This result was doomed from the moment he and Liang Hong chased the big fat man. On the surface, they were two people on the blood demon's side, but here they were a big fat man and a baby. In fact, whether it was Big Fatty, the baby in his arms, Liang Hong who didn't care about the blood demon at all, or even himself who was dormant in Big Fatty's belly waiting for an opportunity, strictly speaking, there were 4 people plotting the plan. He is alone. Blood Demon had no idea that he had become the prey in the eyes of the 4 people, and walked step by step into the trap they carefully prepared. If he doesn't die, there is no justice. Hey hey. Looking at the blood demon lying in a pool of blood, Liang Hong swallowed greedily and was about to extract his item card. But when he chose to draw the prop card, he suddenly remembered something. When he looked back, he saw Su Tong looking at him with a half smile. Suddenly my heart skipped a beat, and I cursed myself for being confused, and hurriedly explained, the conditions for the life-saving ability he finally activated must be very strict, and it will definitely consume a lot of script points, so if we draw cards, the benefits will be greater. When he said the word we, Liang Hong deliberately strengthened his tone, hoping to use this method to tell Su Tong that I don't want to monopolize it, don't misunderstand me. Su Tong just grinned, looking like he understood everything without any explanation. I saw him picking up the baby and holding it in his arms like Yan Niang, but the baby seemed to be very indifferent to him and struggled a few times before trying to break away from his arms. However, the more he struggled, the tighter Su Tong's hug became. Gradually, the doll began to realize that something was wrong, but before he could make a move, the muscles in Su Tong's shoulders began to squirm, and 2 thick and powerful arms appeared on his back. This was a new ability he gained after eating Tana. Although Yan Niang had repeatedly reminded him that eating brain crystals mixed in this way would bring huge hidden dangers, but at this time he didn't care at all. Hey hey! Su Tong stared at the baby's face, with a playful look in his eyes, and raised the corners of his mouth backwards. Under the infiltrating smile, a strong arc of electricity suddenly flashed in the palm of his hand, with a chill on his face. For a moment, the exposed little head of the doll suddenly turned into a big light bulb, but it was not over yet. Su Tong's casserole-sized fists on his shoulders punched left and right, like merciless hailstones. Greeting on the doll's face. The originally pretty face was beaten into a pig's head by Su Tong. You're crazy. At this time, Liang Hong didn't bother to draw the prop card, and rushed forward to stop Su Tong. Before the action, Su Tong had told him that the doll was not Tana's child, but a vassal of Yan Niang. Liang Hong couldn't figure out why this guy suddenly attacked him. Su Tong raised his head, his eyelids drooped slightly, and he looked like he was smiling, which made Liang Hong feel guilty. He quickly changed his words and said, "How can we explain to Yan Niang if you are like this? What I mean is..." "Explain." Su Tong raised his eyebrows slightly. "Why should we give her an explanation? Shouldn't she use us as cannon fodder and contribute to a doll?" The corner of Liang Hong's mouth twitched, and he finally understood what Su Tong meant, and his forehead suddenly felt numb. "Crazy, we are both offended. When the time comes, whichever of them becomes the Queen Mother, we will all suffer." Looking at Liang Hong's crazy and fearful look, he joked, "You see, you know you are afraid of death now. It's much better than the puddle of mud when I met you." Although he was being ridiculed, this sentence still made Liang Hong feel better. After all, who doesn't want to live a miserable life? As long as there is some hope, he will not give up on himself. He patted him on the shoulder and said earnestly, "We are players, why should we charge forward and serve as cannon fodder for them? What if we don't pay a price? Haven't you thought about this problem?" "What?" Liang Hong didn't know what this guy was going to do. He always felt that the way this guy looked at him was getting weirder and weirder, which made him feel uncomfortable all over. I saw Su Tong slowly taking out a bottle of blood containing the original virus from the props book. "After drinking this thing, you are also the source of the virus. If that's the case, why can't you become the Queen Mother?" As soon as these words came out, Liang Hong was stunned. Looking blankly at the bottle of blood in Su Tong's hand, his eyes gradually became wandering. "Yeah? Why didn't you think of this? As long as he gets two source viruses, he can evolve from a semi-source body into a complete source virus, which means that he is already qualified to compete for the Mother Queen. But, that's not right. The Queen Mother is not a fool. Will she choose me?" Liang Hong suddenly thought of another question. After all, he was also a latecomer. To put it bluntly, his source virus was the product of hybridization. Why should the Queen Mother choose him as his successor? When Su Tong heard this, his face was full of contempt and he felt helpless at Liang Hong's stupidity. He could only remind him again, "I have never eaten pork and I have seen pigs running. I have never seen pigs running. I haven't seen it." Liang Hong found that his thinking could no longer keep up with Su Tong's thoughts. This guy's mind was jumping over and over again, and he thought about it one after another. No normal person would think of this. Thinking about it carefully, I can't remember where I have seen any similar cases. Su Tong, who hated iron but could not make steel, could only kick this guy in the butt. How did Li Shimin become the emperor? Liang Hong subconsciously replied, "Of course it's the Suanwu section." His halfway through the words, Liang Hong suddenly understood. The muscles on his face trembled, and he looked at him in surprise, and whispered, You mean, kill them all? Why don't I kill you and kowtow to you during the new year?" Su Tong glanced at him angrily, "Kill them, plus the baby." The Queen Mother has no choice but to choose you as her successor. But just the two of us. Liang Hong was questioning, but his heart was trembling with excitement. This was not questioning, but an urgent desire to know from Su Tong what he should do. Seeing this fool finally enlightened, the smile on his face finally brightened. Fu Er stepped forward and whispered, "Simple, you have to do this first. There are 2 more updates tonight. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 125. Boom. A battle between source viruses in the ruins is gradually entering a fierce stage. Many evolvers who came after hearing the movement chose to flee after seeing the two. The battle between source viruses is like a fight between brothers in the master's family. They, the slaves, are not even qualified to break up the fight. At this moment, Yan Niang has revealed her most ferocious side. Her delicate image was torn into pieces by the slender claws, and bone spurs with fierce light were constantly flying from the slender claws behind her. At the same time, the figure attacked, with sharp claws carrying countless wind blades pressing towards them, instantly seeming to tear everything around them into pieces. Stupid. Looking at Yan Niang, who was still struggling to contend with him, number 8 sighed, "The last person you should not provoke is me, but you have no chance to look back." As he spoke, he slowly raised his hands, carrying countless phantom after images during the movement, as if they had transformed into 1,000 hands. As his hands were clasped together, a ball of blue-black fire appeared in the palm of his hand. In that blue-black light, there were strands of the aura of death. The fire suddenly exploded, forming a twisted and terrifying suction force in the air, and at the same time, countless blades formed by black fire burst out. A look of horror suddenly appeared in Yan Niang's green pupils. She knew how powerful number 8 was, but it was only at this moment that she realized that the gap between the two was huge and they were not on the same level at all. A black fire blade whirled past her head. Yan Niang hurriedly turned her head, and a few wisps of black drifted down, and a scar appeared on her white and delicate face. The wound was accompanied by a stinging burning sensation. Under the burned skin, there was a flash of red light, like the light of red-hot coal flickering in the wind. How could it be blown? It's the same as being indestructible. Yan Niang's body twitched. She was a woman after all. Even if she was just parasitic on a woman's body, the importance of her face was self-evident to her. What's more important is that the scars are still expanding and burning her flesh. No 8's attack continued, and the terrifying suction force prevented her from retreating. The black fire that kept flashing past her almost made her unable to breathe. She was like a drowning person, with all the cells in her body yearning for oxygen, but the water and the air were close at hand, and it only took half a breath to regain her life. However, the urgency of the situation forced her to gasp for breath. "There's no chance for a breath." And number 8 stood proudly, looking at Yan Niang, who was still struggling in front of her with a look of contempt for an ant. Just as the firelight in his hand gradually disappeared, number 8 dodged and came to Yan Niang, who was panting violently. He grabbed her by the throat and lifted her up. A blue-black tornado of fire that seemed to be substantial rotated rapidly, swallowing Yan Niang directly. In an instant, Yan Niang's body was like plastic incinerated by flames, beginning to dissolve and die. Huh. But when number 8 saw this scene, he frowned and threw the body that was burned to cinders aside. Boom. The body exploded, forming countless tiny powders, but these powders exploded violently in the air. Countless gravels flew around, and a large crater with a diameter of 2 meters and a depth of 1 meter was blown out in place. It's interesting. Your ability is not strong, but it is very special. No wonder you want to hide it. Are you afraid of being noticed by others? Number 8 raised his head and looked at the shadow not far away, and asked thoughtfully, "Have you discovered all this?" The shadow then twisted and revealed Yan Niang's figure. She used a naughty tone to cover up her inner horror and waved her hand. Since you found out, it's no longer interesting. You can play by yourself. I'm leaving. Yan Niang said she was about to run away. She promised Su Tong to help delay for half an hour. Although the time was still a little short, the problem was that number 8 was far more difficult than he expected. To be able to delay it to this point is considered to be the most benevolent thing. Don't leave. However, a roar came from behind her, and Liang Hong ran back angrily. He threw the two things on the ground and Yan Niang's pupils tightened, and she exclaimed in surprise, "How could that happen? Smelly bitch, this is not Tana's child at all. This guy said everything before he died. You hid the child and let him hold this fake to lure us to delay. Then you hid the child again. Said, where is the child hidden?" One of the two things Liang Hong threw on the ground was Yan Niang's vassal, that is, the doll. Liang Hong stepped on it and crushed its body to pieces, watching the dark blood flow out. No 8's expression turned sinister instantly. The other one was Su Tong's bloody head. Uni and his dolls were all dead? The sudden change caught Yan Niang off guard. Her face flickered and she looked at Liang Hong. You. Even as smart as she is, she doesn't know what to say at the moment. Even if she says in front of number 8 that this guy is a traitor and came to seek refuge with me before, these words are meaningless. After all, the head is in front and the evidence is in the back. Even if he jumps into the Yellow River, he will not be able to cleanse himself. She originally planned to delay for enough time and then retire, but she didn't expect that Liang Hong's betrayal made her unable to step down. Good plan, but it's a pity that your vassals are not strong enough, otherwise I might really have to let you go. Number 8 clapped his hands and said with a smile. Yan Niang's face turned cold, knowing that she couldn't leave now. Faced with no 8's ridicule, she didn't want to explain anything. Since she couldn't get off the stage, she could only continue to act out the play, whether she wanted to or not. At this moment, he could only say two words to number 8, "Stupid pig." As he said that, he saw her figure flash, turned around and ran away. "Can you escape?" Number 8 let out a terrible sneer, straightened his collar in a leisurely manner, and then started to catch up with him. The slow pace was even several times faster than the blood demon's acceleration. In an instant, the person disappeared. Go in the dark. Looking at No 8's retreating figure, Liang Hong had no intention of catching up. He walked up to Su Tong's head and kicked him casually. After his head rolled a few times on the ground, the skin on his face it quickly split open, revealing the face of the blood demon below. Then he took out a bottle of bright red blood from his pocket and drank it without ceremony. As the blood poured into his throat, Liang Hong's eyeballs suddenly had countless bloodshot eyes, and dark green fluorescence actually flashed in his dark brown pupils. It was like there were thousands of insects crawling under his skin, stretching his face open. This process would undoubtedly be as painful as Ling Qi. The whole process lasted for half an hour before it subsided with Liang Hong howling in pain. When he stood up again, the pupils of his eyes had completely turned dark green, and he also received a prompt from the space, reminding him that he had completed the main task too. This should have been a joyful reminder, but Liang Hong ignored it and looked at his body obsessively. He had never felt such a powerful force in his life. It's a very subtle feeling, as if you can hold the world in front of you by opening your hands. It's as subtle and magical as that. Even his own drug addiction was completely eliminated. It feels so good, no wonder. He sighed in his heart, and now he finally understood why number 8 always looked at people like dogs, with a look of contempt for everything. Now, it's time to find that kid. I hope that guy didn't lie to me, otherwise. Although he said this, he didn't know why, but when he thought of Su Tong's face, he couldn't help but shudder in his heart. On the other side, two figures were chasing each other, one behind the other. Seeing the abandoned buildings that kept passing by, as well as some evolvers who had no idea what was going on. Yan Niang was eager to find a hiding place. But the problem is that No 8's figure is chasing him more and more closely. I saw that his steps were getting lighter and lighter, like a peerless master in novels. His hands were behind his back, and his feet were like a dragonfly tapping water on the ground. The next moment, the figure flew hundreds of meters away. But after he left, the place where his toes had just landed exploded, and black flames spurted out from under the ground, burning the evolvers to ashes in an instant. So wherever he passed, there was a roaring sound of the waves. This damn bastard! Sensing that number 8 was getting closer, Yan Niang couldn't help cursing in her heart, but she was not cursing number 8, but the bastard Uni. The more she thought about it, the more she felt something was wrong. Although she didn't understand what was going on, she felt that she had been tricked by Uni. Su Tong's words flashed through his mind before he was about to separate from her. If number 8 is not willing to be fooled and chase you, remember to run all the way to the west, and the noise is getting better and better. I will find a way to get there. By then there is no place to lure him away. At that time, she didn't care about these words. It wasn't until this moment that she realized that this guy had been ready for a long time. As for what happened to that head, Yan Niang didn't know and had no time to think about the tricks inside. Now she could only give it a try and try to do as Uni said. Thinking of this, Yan Niang changed her direction and rushed into the evolvers quickly. At the same time, she turned around and taunted number 8, "You only dare to chase me, but if you kill me, you will never. I want to know the whereabouts of that child." No 8's face turned cold, and a haze covered his face. He opened his palms, and highly concentrated energy elements quickly gathered in his palms to form a blue-black fireball. The fireball then appeared where Yan Niang was standing in the next second. Position. With a boom, black flames soared everywhere and scattered in the space. They greedily devoured and burned the evolvers who were screaming and running for their lives. In an instant, these grotesque evolvers were burned into black ashes floating in the air. The scene was weird, spectacular, and even a bit artistic. Yan Niang herself appeared silently in the shadows on the other side again. Her elusive figure made number 8 feel very annoying. He didn't like Yan Niang's ability. Although her fighting ability was poor, she was excellent at escaping. After seeing the huge explosion and the dust flying in the air, Yan Niang suddenly understood something. Her eyes lit up and her figure became more and more fluttering. But what Yan Niang didn't know was that just when she was risking her life to get entangled with number 8. At the other end, Su Tongzhen was wandering around in the west. Although there was no one on the street, he was chewing beef patties in one hand and holding a Coke in the other. His eyes were looking at the street from time to time, with a carefree look on his face. It's like walking on the street. If Yan Niang saw this scene, she would probably be tempted to lay this guy on the bed and cut him into pieces. At this time, Su Tong suddenly seemed to notice something. He took 2 steps back, leaned back, chewed a pancake with one hand and tilted his head to the left. He looked at the blood-stained door in front of him. There was a sign hanging on it. There were 3 words that could be clearly seen in the blurred writing on it. It read Zumei Cheng. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 126. The sounds of fighting were getting closer and closer, but the number of fleeing people changed from 1 to 2. It seems to be a coincidence. Su Tong means that you should make more noise to let other competitors know that there is a fight here. I don't know whether it was a coincidence or good luck. When Yan Niang escaped to a hidden corner to take a breather, she happened to be hiding in the hiding place of mustache. My mustache was numb at that time. I was hiding in such a hidden place, but you came to me? Mustache's heart was like thousands of grass and mud horses galloping around, but he had no choice but to run away with Yan Niang. However, with the addition of Mustache, the pressure on Yan Niang suddenly reduced a lot. Mustache seems to be very good at defense. Facing No 8's black fire, he can parry and withstand a few blows. Of course, it's just a few blows. He can't bear any more. It would be even more unbearable if it really happened head-on. Fortunately, Yan Niang's special ability played a key role at this time. The ability to follow him like a shadow allows him to shuttle freely in the shadows, and at the same time, he can also quickly use the ability of creation to create a clone with certain combat effectiveness. To be fair, his fighting ability is not bad, but in front of number 8, he is no different from paper. But Yan Niang couldn't stop her from being ruthless and kept making trouble. She grabbed a handful of Mustache's hair and ignored Mustache's howling like a pig. After grabbing a handful of hair, he kneaded it casually in his hands a few times. Suddenly, a dozen figures with mustaches appeared in front of him to stop No 8's pursuit. The effect is quite good. The created mustache is not very powerful in combat, but has first-rate defense. It can often block number 8 for a period of time, giving the two of them some breathing time. The only bad thing is that in just a short while, most of the hair on the mustache's head has been pulled out. How long do we have to run? This is not an option. How about we run separately? Maybe one of us can escape. The mustache covered his head. Although his hair was thick, he couldn't resist Yan Niang stroking it one by one for free. Run separately? Do you think you are running fast, or do you think he is running slowly? Even if you kill me, you won't survive. Yan Niang was also in a bad state. Such crazy use of the creation technique was also very draining on him. He took a breath and asked, "Do you know where others are hiding?" Mustache was stunned for a moment and shook his head. Who knows? They all ran separately at the beginning, neither of them wanted to be found, let alone betrayed themselves to number 8 if someone else was discovered, so no one knew the location of the other. Mustache's luck was simply too bad, he was just a dead rat after being hit by Yan Niang's blind cat. But it's not an option for us to continue wasting our time. Didn't you say that running to the west might help you? Yan Niang said she didn't want to answer. Help her. Go to hell, that bastard Uni sold her out completely this time. It was obviously unrealistic to expect him to help. And Yan Niang also knew in her heart that even if Uni took action, it would have no effect at all against such a powerful number 8. The two of them had only said 2 or 3 words when their expressions suddenly changed. Yan Niang grabbed the mustache's hair and quickly rushed out of the building where she was hiding. Immediately afterwards, a black fire exploded in the place where they had been hiding. A sudden violent tremor caused the entire lair and even the earth to tremble. Rumble, rumble. A violent trembling sound was heard, causing a thick layer of dust to rise from the roof of this old house. Su Tong, who was sitting in front of the mirror and patiently putting on makeup, saw that the face makeup he had just painted was covered in dust. He suddenly curled his lips, picked up the towel on the side, wiped his face off and started painting again. Just like Yan Niang said, he had no intention of supporting Yan Niang and the others. He was stalling for time, just like a cross-talk show. The first 2 games were the opening, and the middle part was his debut. So let Yan Niang and the others continue to delay. The longer they delay, the better the effect will be. I have to say, it feels really comfortable to use others as cannon fodder. Pick up the brush again, look in the mirror and draw a pair of unparalleled eyebrows for yourself again. After the entire facial makeup was painted, I looked carefully in the mirror, and then nodded reluctantly, it's just that my face is a little thin. Guangong's face is not fat, but his thin face makes him less powerful. However, his face shape is not enough, and his singing skills are not enough. After drawing the facial makeup, Su Tong casually called out the prop book. He couldn't help but look at the brand new prop card and frowned for a moment. This prop card was obtained from the Blood Demon's prop book. In exchange, Su Tong gave him the blood that originated from the virus in exchange for him choosing the items in the Blood Demon prop book. When he heard Liang Hong report the names and attributes of all the prop cards to him, he didn't even hesitate and decisively chose the prop card named Dark Physique. Liang Hong himself was not surprised at all, because he would have chosen this item card, as it was the core item card of the Blood Demon. All of Blood Demon's abilities are configured around this prop card. You must know that the core item card itself is extremely rare and expensive, and almost no one would even choose to trade it. As for the exact location of Tana's child, Su Tong offered a price of 500 script points. He believed that the script could still be obtained with good investment. After all, they followed number 8 and became his vassals. They have obviously completed their identity mission and must have received the rewarded midfield supply box. For such a large amount of script points, Liang Hong still hesitated for a long time, and finally managed to come up with 300 points after a round of bargaining. Su Tong can still recall the cold look on this guy's face when he left. It seems that this young man has begun to bear a grudge against him. But he didn't care. He already had a lot of troubles, and one more trouble for him wouldn't bring much more. The matter at hand was more important. He looked at the introduction entry of Dark Physique. Although it was not the first time, he still looked at it very carefully. Dark Physique. Only those who walk on the edge of darkness have such a physique, but be careful not to try to cross that red line, otherwise you are doomed. Comes with passive 1, Body of Darkness. The wearer will have a special physical effect and be reduced by 30% when receiving dark damage such as poison, black spells, and curses. Note, but at the same time, when you are harmed by justice systems such as Holy, Light, Talisman, etc., the damage will be increased by 30%. Comes with passive 2, Night God's Caress. At night or in a dark environment, all your dark skills will temporarily gain a 20% increase in power and reduce the cooldown by 15%. Note, similarly, in daylight or extremely bright environments, all your dark skills will be temporarily weakened by 20% and the cooldown time will be extended by 15%. Active skill, Heart of the Abyss. After consuming 20 script points you can devour the dark power in your body after activation. Each time you devour it, the level of the dark body will increase by 1 level. Note, this is a double-edged sword. The closer you are to the darkness, the further you are destined to deviate from the light, and eventually fall into the abyss. This prop card cannot be said to be very powerful, but it is definitely an extremely rare core prop card. You choose this prop card yourself. More importantly, although you don't have as many dark props and skills as Blood Demon, your prop cards are basically all dark props. Especially the Demon Power prop card, which is truly the best in the dark system. So getting this prop card will also make a qualitative leap in your own strength. But the most difficult thing for him at this moment is, which prop card should he strengthen? Su Tong turned his finger on Star Eye Tribulation and his eyes wandered between the Body of Darkness and the Power of Demons. He was still hesitating, but he didn't know that the situation outside was already turning upside down. Yan Niang and Xiao Hu, who had realized that it was futile to continue escaping, finally gave up the idea of escape and began to desperately attack number 8. It's just that it's obvious that number 8 dares to openly say that he will kill you all if he can't find the child, and he is definitely not speaking arrogantly. Yan Niang dived towards number 8 at an extremely fast speed. At this moment, she had completely revealed her true body, with purple bone wings growing out of her back, and the air around her body was covered in a light purple. At the extreme high speed, Yan Niang left a purple afterimage in the air. But number 8, who was still spotless in his black suit, had a contemptuous sneer on his lips. He put his right hand behind his back and calmly defused Yan Niang's attack moves with only one left hand. The process seemed to be an understatement, and he didn't even forget to make the most elegant gesture. It made people feel as if his outstretched hand was more like it's like asking number 8 to dance. Although Yan Niang's sharp claws left deep scars on No 8's left hand, they did not cause any substantial harm to this terrible man. Instead, he took the opportunity and grabbed Yan Niang's bone wings. A chilling smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and with a strong curl, he said "Kale," which made Yan Niang's face suddenly turn pale. At the same time, another fist was raised, making an obvious movement of accumulating force, and it hit the mustache that was sneaking behind him. There was a boom and dark flames flew everywhere. The mustache, who was fully prepared, did not retreat but advanced instead, as if he was waiting for this punch. He opened his arms and crossed his chest, resisting the punch forcefully. At the same time, it stimulates his own supernatural power to counterattack. This is Mustache's most powerful killing move. The stronger the opponent's power, the more powerful his counterattack will be. This skill of retaliating with another person's way is the key to his heavy damage to number 8. But what he never expected was that number 8 seemed to be born with a keen sense of combat. When he sensed the danger, he immediately turned his fists into claws, and 5 extremely sharp curved energy appeared in the air, flashing in the air. Pass away. Such a brutal claw attack took the unprepared mustache and he was whipped around alive. He felt as if a dark force penetrated into his flesh and blood, as if it was exploding in his abdomen. After his body fell heavily to the ground, a stream of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Stupid guy, the strongest defense always only has 2 words, attack. Attack. Keep attacking. Looking at the mustache lying on the ground, number 8 laughed wildly, holding Yan Niang's bone wing in his right hand, and fiercely smashed it. She fell to the ground. Just when he was about to kill these 2 guys, his ears twitched and he felt a strong palpitation in his heart. He turned around suddenly and heard a baby crying behind him. The sound disappeared in a flash, and when he listened carefully again, he only heard a thump, 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 thump. I wrote, deleted, and slept for 2 hours in the middle. Sorry for being late. Good morning. Also, please give me your morning ticket. Just think of it as Shui's breakfast money. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 127. Number 8 raised his eyebrows slightly, and when the sound of the gong stopped, he heard the babies howling loudly. The sound was right under his nose, but he couldn't find the source for a while. Go quickly. Yan Niang heard the sound and immediately understood that it must be Uni, the bastard. She immediately grabbed her mustache and ran west quickly. When number 8 saw this, he did not take action again. Instead, he followed the 2 of them leisurely to see what tricks they were going to do. More importantly, he followed them to find the hiding place of the child. Dang 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 dang. The sound of gongs and drums was beating faster and faster, as if they were deliberately leading them forward, but amid the sound of gongs and drums, the cry of a baby could be faintly heard. When the three of them chased them out along the alley one after another, they saw the ground around them was in a mess, with a large amount of discarded furniture and sawdust piled up. Those who didn't know better thought the street was going to be demolished. At the same time, there was a pungent smell in the air. It was gasoline. And that's a lot of gasoline. Number 8 vaguely heard the child's voice coming from these abandoned garbage, but the voice was so weak that it was impossible to tell where it was. The child is right here. If you want to fight, fight here. Whoever wins, I will tell him the whereabouts of the child. Following Su Tong's voice, 2 large fire pits were lit on the roofs on the left and right. It was already dark here, but the light from the 2 braziers illuminated part of the sky, making the space below much darker. Under the light of the fire, I saw a red face peeking out from the side of the fire. It had unparalleled eyebrows, a big red face, a black mole on the face, and black lines on the forehead. It held a long beard on its chin, and its eyelids were half squinted. The radiation hit half of his face, making his eyes dim and uncertain with a cold glow. UNI. Although he was wearing facial makeup, his voice remained unchanged. Yan Niang glared at him and wanted to tear this guy apart. This was completely different from what they had talked about before. Unfortunately, her angry eyes were completely ignored by Su Tong, who looked at number 8 standing behind the 2 of them. You only have 7 minutes. I will set fire to you after 7 minutes. After saying that, he ignored No 8's murderous look at him and lightly hooked his fingers. Boom. I saw a gong sound coming from the brazier in the opposite room. The 2 paper figures, one playing the drum and the other playing the gong, could kill themselves if they wanted to, but if this pot of fire oil were poured over, the whole street would turn into a sea of flames in an instant. They were not afraid that the baby hidden in the shabby furniture would definitely die. The atmosphere suddenly became weird. Yan Niang and Xiaozu had to turn around and look at number 8 warily. They knew better than anyone else that the purpose of Su Tong's actions was to suppress No 8's power to the maximum extent, so that he would not have any blackmail. The blessing of fire. But they hate Su Tong even more, because if they do so, they will have to fight to the death with number 8. Innocent, do you think I am someone who will be blackmailed by you? Besides, how do I know if you have lied to me or replaced me with an impostor? There was a disdainful smile on the corner of No 8's mouth. He opened his wounded palms and saw a black and blue flame beating in his palms. It seems that a fire is ready to ignite everything here. Once this happens, the child will certainly die, but Su Tong and the 3 of them present will not be able to survive. Do not believe. Su Tong's pair of unparalleled eyebrows were raised slightly, and he took out an alarm clock from the prop book without haste. After setting the time of the alarm clock, he put it at his feet. Please. As he spoke, he didn't care what number 8 was going to say next or whether he was going to kill without hesitation, he just flicked his finger. The paper man on the roof opposite began to beat the gongs and drums on his hands. Dang, 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 dang. The drums were beaten quickly and the gongs were beaten quickly. Under the firelight, Su Tong was seen shaking his head, holding a long beard in his hand, holding a green dragon knife in his hand, walking like a tiger and a dragon, walking to the beat of the drum. Hearing this, I was furious. How can a tiger girl be worthy of a dog boy? This Jingzhou is controlled by someone, who is brave enough to seize Jingxiang. If I don't remember Zhuge Yang, my head will be hung in the barracks. If it were in a theater, this old style of Qin opera would definitely get the whole house cheering. But at this time, no one was watching downstairs. No 8's eyes flickered. He glanced at the clock at Su Tong's feet, and finally focused on Yan Niang and Xiao Hu. He didn't dare to bet, not only because of the child, but more importantly, Yan Niang's ability was actually creation, although that was just the beginning of creation, and it shouldn't even be called creation at all. But if she can become the Queen Mother, she may really have a chance to complete the plan envisioned in the Queen Mother's heart. Yan Niang gave him such a surprise. There was no guarantee that other human origin virus hosts did not have bigger bargaining chips hidden in their hands. In comparison, he didn't even have any sacrifices to offer to the Queen Mother, so what advantages did he have to compete for the Queen Mother's position? He noticed No 8's unkind look. Mustache immediately raised his hands in front of his chest to be on guard, but soon his scalp tightened, and when he looked sideways, he saw Yan Niang holding one hand on his hair. The moment the three people's eyes met, determination was already revealed in their eyes. Only this time, the person who took the lead was number 8. Without the blessing of the strange fire, No 8's speed is still as fast as the wind, and his scarred palms still carry a calmness, elegance, and even unruly aloofness. Faced with the oncoming number 8, Yan Niang and Xiao Zi immediately tried their best to fight. I saw his left hand clenched into a fist, and his attack speed was slow. But it was like a huge axe from Ruokai Mountain that was bombarding him one after another. His right hand was light and ethereal, and the 5 fingers on his hand danced and trembled like rain falling on a pipa. His hands moved slowly and quickly, with a combination of strength and softness, immediately breaking through the mustache's defense in front of him, but without the help of the black flame, his combat power was greatly reduced. The moment mustache's defense was shattered, a cold light shone in his eyes, the muscles in his body suddenly expanded, and he grabbed No 8's wrist with both hands. Number 8 struggled hard but couldn't break free. His wrists seemed to be tightly clamped by iron vice. At this moment, Yan Niang's figure appeared beside him. The people below are playing, and the people above are singing. With the beating of gongs and drums, his eyes widened, his left hand held his beard, and his right hand held a knife. As he walked, the red face became more and more ferocious and sad. I think back then, I immediately killed Pound and captured him in front of Fen Jiun's eyes, and shocked Hui Ai. Today, I am trapped in Mei Cheng and facing danger. I made a mistake and was bullied by these ugly people. Yan Niang's figure turned into a faint black shadow, hazy and blurred. Like a snake swimming in the water, twisting and twisting forward quickly. His right hand was dry and thin, with a faint black light shining on his nails. Looking at Yan Niang appearing next to him, number 8 subconsciously wanted to activate the black flames, but as soon as he raised his hand, he suddenly realized that it was full of gasoline. As soon as the thought flashed, his actions were slowed down. There was a pain in my chest and Yan Niang flew away with her claws. This was the first time that Yan Niang had seriously injured number 8, which naturally gave the two of them infinite confidence. Of course, they would not let this opportunity go, and were about to pounce on it and make persistent efforts. Number 8 suddenly raised his head and roared loudly towards the two of them. "Get out of here! You bastard!" With a wild roar, blood came out of No 8's eyes, nostrils, ears, and corners of his mouth. The voice reached an extremely high pitch. The huge roar actually made the two of them briefly dizzy. Upstairs, Su Tong was still singing, waving the sword in his hand wildly in the air, his red face and eyes widened, and his eyes were already covered with bloodshot eyes. "Have more courage. Follow my father and kill. 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 Break out of the siege." He had been a hero and a hero throughout his life, but now he was at the end of his rope and lost in Mei Cheng. The drums beat faster and faster, and the swords swing faster and faster, as if there are really thousands of troops in this darkness, coming towards them. I don't know if the scene is too tragic or if the disturbing drum beat makes people feel hot. Listening to the song Zhou Mei Cheng, number 8 felt the same sigh and resonance as Guan Yu. However, he knew that he was not Guan Yu. "Nor will I lose my way on the Mei Cheng trail." He stood up and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. There was already fury in his eyes, and his chest was a bloody mess. This claw destroyed the elegance on his face and replaced it with anger. When Cai Yan Yang and Xiao Hu were in a state of instability, they quickly came to kill them. His eyes became colder and wilder, the joints on his body became thicker, and the muscles swelled, completely tearing apart his human face, revealing his true appearance. It was a demon-like body, covered with a layer of armor made of dense white bones. He swung his fist and smashed directly into Mustache's chest. You could even hear the cracking of bones, echoing in the air. The other hand stretched out a finger at the same time, and one finger had already penetrated Yan Niang's shoulder blade. The shoulder blade broke into two pieces and hit the surrounding bones. Finally, the bone wings behind her were shattered into pieces. He kicked her away, and her body was like a cannonball before it hit the wall. Number 8 tilted his head and looked coldly at Su Tong, who was standing on the roof with a red face. When the two people's eyes met, they suddenly heard the cry of a baby behind them, and then saw a fat man suddenly struggling to stand up among the high piles of furniture, turning around and about to run away. And that baby's cry came from the fat man's belly. Seeing this, No 8's eyes lit up, and his steps created a whirlpool in the air. His figure rushed in front of Ji Fat like a tiger and leopard. The paper armor that could not even be broken by the blood demon's claws was thrown into the air. Number 8 was even more vulnerable to the sharp, thick, and violent fist. He punched in with one punch and tore a hole in Ji Peng's chest with his backhand. But to his disappointment, there was no child in the big fat belly, only 4 or 5 gasoline barrels with a paper man sitting on them. Wow wow! The piercing sound of a baby crying, without the sound insulation and annoyance process of the big fat belly, is even more harsh. I saw that the paper man was actually holding a Walkman in his arms. As the paper man continued to press the on and off button of the Walkman, as the tape turned, a piece of music actually played. I'm afraid I won't have the chance to say goodbye to you, because maybe I'll never see you again. The melodious and relaxed singing voice was just like Su Tong's swooning face appearing in front of his eyes. Boom! Smashing the Walkman in front of him with one punch, Number 8 turned around with a dark face, only to find that Su Tong had already carried Yan Niang and Mustache on his back and was running as fast as he could. He didn't even bother to change his clothes, and jumped on the roof and ran away. Can you run? Number 8 snorted coldly. He was about to chase but suddenly found that his feet tightened. He lowered his head and saw dense tentacles wrapping around his feet. What made him even more nervous was that a bright light suddenly flashed out of Zipang's torn chest. The light became stronger and stronger, instantly turning the world in front of me into daylight.